So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. What we're going to be covering is BIM 360 design and talking specifically about a couple of the practical applications that you can get from the service. So just a couple of things out of the way in the very beginning. So we're going to be going through this. Everyone's going to be on mute for the duration. If you have any questions, please feel free to pop those into the chat or the questions window. I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the duration. If I can answer a question while I'm presenting, I'll gladly take care of that. If not, I'll make sure I get to it at the end. Alrighty, so some basic information. So just in case anybody is not aware, my name is Peter Marchese. I work for Microdesk. We are an AEC industry consulting firm, and we've been around since 1994. We currently have 12 locations in the US and 1 in the UK. We cover the East, West, and some of the middle of the country. And our team consists of over 170 different technical specialists that are like me. They have a background in the industry. So I worked in architecture for about 10 years before moving into consulting, and my team consists of people that have worked in construction, engineering design, from structural, mechanical, civil engineering, covers the whole gambit. And as part of that, we're able to help our clients with different things, whether it's building information modeling, actually working on projects, creating the content, doing project administration, helping them out with coordination meetings, mentoring support, and we have a development team on staff as well for any customization or application development that we have to create. So today's presentation is going to be given by myself. Again, my background is as an architect. I lead our emerging technologies group, focusing on next-gen tools like VR, AR, UAVs, cloud services like BIM 360. And my focus is on taking new technology and making sure it's actually useful and finding ways to better people's workflows. So today, we're going to have a quick overview of what BIM 360 is, make sure everybody is on the same playing field, and talk specifically about BIM 360 design benefits, and then go over questions and answers and how people can actually get access to this. Now, before we get rolling, I do want to just ask the audience just a couple of quick questions. So put this up on the screen for a couple of seconds. So what is your role? So are you actually working in the design side of things as a designer or as an engineer? Is your focus mostly in construction, or are you a PM principal? A lot of other this time around. Always good to see a nice variance there. Perfect. Okay. Then is anybody currently using BIM 360, whether now or maybe in the past? Mm-hmm. All right, so hopefully we can raise the yes numbers after this. And then last one, and then we'll get rolling. Are you currently using any cloud or mobile tools for your project work? Gotcha, good to see a lot of people are saying yes, just about half actually. So hopefully we'll convert everybody into the yes side. Alrighty, off we go. So BIM 360. BIM 360 is Autodesk's cloud platform. So all of their different tools now, they're trying to keep everything coordinated. And as part of that, you might have seen some of the things referred to as classic or next gen. So there's a lot of different components to BIM 360. A lot of the ones you might have heard for BIM 360 Glue or Field. Those would be technically the classic apps. The next gen version of that would be Build, which includes field management and project management, as well as on the Glue side, it's called Model Coordination now. The big ones we're going to focus on today is the BIM 360 Document Management and the BIM 360 Design Collaboration, which in many respects is the next gen of collaboration for Revit. Now, it's not just a rebranding, though. It actually has a lot of new features and additional things that we can do, much of which was driven by feedback from its original users. Now, the collaboration challenges that we typically have, we have a lot of different people on a project. They all have their own workflows. They're all trying to coordinate, and we want to make sure that we're all keeping pace with everybody. So a lot of things that come up with a lot of our clients, especially the ones that are working on government projects, security and accountability. How do I ensure that only the right people get access to my content? How do I ensure that my content is only where I want it to be? Every project has issues with team communication, and as more and more of our projects need to be done faster and actually have less problems, the complexity is growing. And a lot of the tools that we're currently using can be considered as inefficient, not on the design side necessarily, but on the collaboration side, trying to ensure that everybody has access to the same information, that we're able to actually use it for what it's meant for, as opposed to a bunch of workarounds. Now, one of the first things that people are going to find by using the BIM 360 design workflow is anytime, anywhere access. So there's that benefit of the cloud in general. No matter what happens, I can get access to my data. I remember more than enough projects that I've worked on in the past where I'm trying to run to a meeting and I've got rolls and rolls of drawings and reams of spec sections. So I don't want to have to carry all those things. And inevitably, when you try to run to that meeting, there's something that gets missed, or there was one more copy that didn't get rolled up. The benefit of this is that it doesn't matter if I'm using a web browser or what web browser I'm using, or a mobile device. And that could be Android, it could be iOS, it doesn't really matter. I can access all of my content based on my user rights. I can take a look at it, view it, and control it and work off of that. So I have that anytime, anywhere access to my data. And it's not just a file repository. You know, Dropbox gives me anytime access to files, but it's not like I can open up a Revit file inside of Dropbox. I can't start marking things up inside of an AutoCAD file inside of OneDrive. They're great for sharing the files, but then what? That's really where the BIM 360 comes in. It's designed specifically for our workflow and works with our files. So that's usually the first one that comes up for everybody. Now, next one is, well, our team isn't in the same place. As projects are growing, people are working for different companies, they're working as consultants, maybe they're taking the lead on something, or they're looking for additional work outside of their normal range. Our teams are starting to break apart. You might have 3 people in one office because they're available, so let's put them on this project. This is great from a standpoint of we're going to put as many people on the project from everywhere, but it's not that great from a time or money standpoint if we're looking at how fast or efficient that process is. It's usually too expensive to ship people to the other office. And if we're using things like VPNs, you could be spending hours a day just opening or saving. It's not the smoothest or fastest workflow. When dealing with the spread teams for BIM 360, what we end up doing is taking our central model and we put that in the cloud. So we can store any kind of file format that we need, whether it's AutoCAD, Revit, IFC, PDFs. But for our teams that are working in Revit, our central file is in the cloud, and what we end up doing is create things called packages. So when I'm ready to share my model with the rest of the team, I create a package and I share that with them. And then they have the ability to review what I've given them. So it doesn't automatically end up in their files. They can check it out and make sure it actually does what they want first. And the nice thing about this is it's very easy to see the time frame. So if I create a package, you actually have this timeline. I can see when the packages were created, by which member of my team, what's included in it, and whether or not the other teams are actually using it. So I have a lot of control and a lot of accountability. I can see everything that's going on. And in terms of making sure that everybody has the right level of access, again, this goes back to that security, I have full control over people and I can manage user rights on a folder level as well as on a service level. If I want to say that this entire company has full access to a certain folder, it's very easy. I just assign it to that. If I want to say only my people who are listed as project managers have control over this one folder or can even see it, same thing. So you can manage those permissions based on the individual person, the role that you've assigned them, or the company. And this is something that's quite easy to set up right in the beginning of a project. And again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them into the questions bar as part of the GoToWebinar. Now, Next big thing that tends to jump up at people when we start looking at BIM 360 is the fact that we have the ability for version control. Most of the time when we're working locally, you start sending emails around and you might have the same file in 3 or 4 places. And then you might see that exact same file format's the same, maybe the file size is the same, and then we have 3 different file names. So now the fun is trying to figure out, okay, well, which version is actually the right one or the most recent one? And then maybe compounding that problem, maybe somebody accidentally opens up the file in the wrong version. So now how do we roll this back? Or somebody sends that, saves it over, and now I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I actually move forward? Where do I get my content from? One of the great things about BIM 360 is that I have full version control. I have an indefinite amount of versions for my files. Every time I upload or sync my file, it's tracking that. I can see the versions that were published, I can see the versions that were synced, and I can actually roll back or download those different versions. If when people are actually syncing to the central file from Revit, they're putting in comments, from the tools inside of Revit, I can easily search back. And again, search back as far as I want based on the user, based on the comment, the time. So I have all of these version control components. And it's very easy to see what changes between those different versions. So when I'm actually looking at this, this is one of those tools from that timeliner again, the packages that I called it before. This is showing me all the content that was added, removed, or modified in between these 2 packages. So when somebody sends me, in this case, I'm looking at the structural package, they send me an update to this. I can easily come in and see, okay, well, what am I reacting to? What have they changed in that file since the last time I saw it? On the left-hand side, you can see I have my disciplines affected, and there's also a modification type. This is something that allows me to filter this down. If I only care about one discipline, I can say, just show me that one. If I only care about certain kinds of modifications, like show me things that have moved, I don't care if they change the properties. Again, I can use that as a filter. So it gives me a lot of control in terms of understanding what's going on in my projects. What we're seeing a lot of is people tend to look at this as, oh, this allows me to work with my consultant's files, which is an easy way to look at it. But we're also seeing a lot of project managers who maybe aren't that familiar with Revit or don't have a chance to use it that often. Maybe their computer isn't powerful enough to run the Revit project very well. This allows the PMs to check in on their project teams, to see how their team is doing, to monitor their progress and understand where the project actually is. And as part of that work as a project manager, there's always the ability to review those projects. Now, all of us have very busy lives, I know that, and trying to get work done wherever you can is kind of normal. However, when you're working in sort of the old school way, you've got your rolls of drawings or even 11 by 17s, commuting on the train or in public transportation, it's not always the best place to sit there and try to mark up or review work. But all of us have phones, so we have access to our content. The other problem we tend to run into with project reviews is sort of that game of telephone where we start going around and around in a circle where, okay, who wants what, who needs what? And you're always trying to find where in the notes somebody said one thing. Maybe it's all inside of emails and one person deleted some, one person forwarded it. And again, you don't really remember why a change is being made. With BIM 360, all this information is easily accessible, again, from mobile device, website, and it's all tracked as part of the project record. If somebody is putting in something like an RFI, which is part of the build package, there's a workflow for that, and that result is tracked. If somebody is putting in an issue, which is available in any of the services, that allows me, again, to track that. I can see who put in the issue. Based on the color of the issue dot, I can tell exactly what the status of the issue is. I can actually assign the issue to individual people, groups, or teams. And what I can also do is track that status. So what you might notice here is that this is telling me it's in the site plan and it's version 3. So I can see what version of the document that issue was created in. It also allows me to add other elements to it. So let's say what I'm doing is I'm walking through the site and I notice something doesn't line up with the drawing. I can actually take a photograph with that on my mobile device, attach the photo to the issue that I created with a push pin in the drawing or in the model to show where it relates. So it allows me to have all of that content connected. And again, it's part of the project record. If I'm trying to figure out why or how we got somewhere, it's all here in one place, easily accessible by the entire team. And one of the nice features here is that inside my document management, I can see all my current issues, what that status is. I can create and export a report from here. And recently, Autodesk added another feature here called actual reviews, where I can collect or create essentially a set of content and submit that for review. And I can make it a 1, 2, or 3-step process, meaning that it can go through multiple stages for review. And I can actually automate the process. Once this review is done, any content that actually is accepted can be automatically copied into a specific folder, almost as an archive or a record set. So this is one of the newer features. So if you watched the last webinar, this is new since then. But this is specific for reviews, and it works perfectly for the users to keep track of what's going on. Now, the big one here is coordination. So not everybody that we work with on a project is going to be using Revit. So there's still that issue of coordinating with other users who are maybe using different content. I can still post content onto BIM 360 that is almost any file format. If I put up my DWG files, I can still view them, mark them up, put issues in them, and link to them in my Revit model. And the benefit of using BIM 360 for the linking here is that this puts it in the exact same file location for everyone else on the team. So I don't have to worry about people downloading them to their server, and then maybe they forgot to do it after an update. This ensures we're all looking at that same version. Same thing for IFC files. I can link an IFC file from BIM 360. If we're coordinating with civil users, there's actually a workflow to publish the surface from Civil 3D directly to BIM 360, so that way I can link that topography in a Revit. So that ensures that the topo in my Revit model stays up to date with the end result. So much more streamlined workflow with our civil team. And if that civil team happens to be working with InfraWorks, perfect. I can easily put the InfraWorks model in the BIM 360 project. That allows me to view it in the browser, track my versions, look at different views, do markups. And if I've actually linked my Revit model into the InfraWorks project, I would actually be able to view that on the site in the browser as well. Wouldn't need to have, own, or know how to use InfraWorks to do so. Just anybody can hop in there and start navigating around and seeing how the design works in the site. So there's a lot of different things that we can get from using BIM 360. And the BIM 360 design process is specific to working with other teams. So it's allowing you to actually have a lot more control. You're not just using it as an FTP. You're not just replacing OneDrive or Dropbox. You're using it to really allow an entire team to coordinate and collaborate with each other, using the tools to help create and foster a workflow that's more efficient and hopefully communicative between the team members. And there's been enough studies that have shown that if you implement a cloud technology solution and actually implement it, not just buy it and turn it on, you've actually made sure that the workflow is set up for you, it can actually impact the project lifecycle cost. It's going to cut that cost by a good amount, especially when you start looking at how much money is wrapped up in construction. It's a very large number. Now, getting access to this is actually pretty easy. If you own the previous versions of, say, Collaboration for Revit or even BIM 360 Field, you already have access to the new version. And the different packages are laid out like this. So the one that we've been focusing on and talking about was BIM 360 Design. So the Design one comes with the Classic as well as the Next Gen. So you get C4R as well as BIM 360 Design. It comes with Document Management as well as the Project Home and the Insight tab. Getting access to Insight is something that's relatively new for all of the teams. Previously, it was only available for Build. But Insight gives you a lot more information in terms of the status of the project, where things are with issues, and how things are running. It also gives you a readout of all the reports that have been created. But these are the four main packages right now for BIM 360. And the nice thing is if you want to take it over for a test run, it is available. There's 30-day trials for all four of those, including the BIM 360 design one that we looked at today. And one of the things I mentioned was that reviews workflow was new since the last time we did one of these webinars. Autodesk is looking for feedback, and it also is more open about its upcoming roadmap. So if you look at the Next Gen roadmap page, that'll give you an idea of what they're planning for these. Also, if you look at the Autodesk University website, they actually had a lot of sessions covering the roadmap there, so you can get more insight on that. And if after looking at those you say, I like this, but I really wish it did this, Autodesk does have an ideas forum where they're asking for feedback. Being a cloud service, this is being updated almost every month, if not more recent than that. So they want your feedback, they want your ideas, and they are implementing them. Now with that, definitely want to open it up to Q&A. I got a couple of questions in there, and if anybody has something where they want me to actually show in the service, I'm glad to do so. So 2 questions here. Can you explain how would you find an old version of the Revit file based on comments, and what is actually a comment in Revit? So for that, I'm going to hop into Revit. So I'm looking at a Revit model here. This model is actually something that is shared into BIM 360. So the first thing is, well, what is a comment? So if I say sync to central, one of the things that I can actually do is put a comment in here. So I always recommend this if you're making a big change. So last save prior to deleting option B. You know, let's say the client comes back after 2 months, it's like, yeah, you know what? I think I like the other option better. Rather than spending several hours combing through different versions, trying to find whichever version still had, you know, the different design options or the other content. If I put a comment in here that sort of acts as a tag or, you know, a mark for me, that means that when I'm actually in my, excuse me, my Collaborate ribbon, I can look at my Manage Cloud Models. There you go. And I'll be able to go back through that. So in this case, when I start looking at my different projects that are in this version of Revit, I can see I'm looking at the architectural file, and I'm looking at my versions. So now I can see the different comments, the users, the timestamps, and I can easily search by that version. So if I say furniture, it shows me that specific version that had furniture in the comment. So it makes it very easy for me to start tracking down the different files and versions and content that way. Yep, another question asking about the different packages that are available. Sure. Yep. So these are the four main packages that are available right now. Now, the reason why there are 4 versions is because you don't want to pay for stuff you're not going to use. So each version essentially works off of document management. So that way we all have a common library. But if I'm not going to be doing things where I need to do punch lists or I need to do RFIs or submittals, then I don't need BIM 360 Build. I just focus on the package that I need. So that's why there actually are so many versions. So you just pick the version that you want, and that's the version that you'll get. And in some cases, companies might need all of them, but if I get 10 seats of each one of these, that doesn't mean that I give out 1 seat and that's pulled 1 from all of them. Docs are perfect for people who just need to access the website. So maybe the client or project managers. BIM 360 Design is for my Revit users who are collaborating through the cloud. Maybe my build team are the crew that are out in the field doing inspections. They're doing punch lists. So I pick out the correct or appropriate tool for each team member. And if there are questions as to which package that you would need for your team, we're glad to help work with you on that. So if you're talking about design through construction, if you're using Revit, more than likely you're going to need design and build. Depending on what you want to do, you might need glue as well, but that's really just going to depend on whether or not you already have Navisworks and if you want to take advantage of APL or the cloud clash detection. Another question, do contractors need to have a license in order to access the document management and collaboration tools? As it stands right now, anybody who is accessing the service and using it, they would need a seat. Now, in terms of that, if the contractors are really just accessing it to upload or download files, they would only need the docs license. If your contractors are accessing it to submit RFIs, to do checklists, things of that nature, then they would need build. So the licensing structure, so the question is, what is the licensing and pricing structure? So the licensing structure right now is per user. So essentially, if I have 10 people who are accessing the site, I would need 10 seats. The key thing here is this. Whoever is hosting the project, they would be assigning their seats to anybody who accesses it for just the docs, glue, and build. BIM 360 design is a little bit different in that if I have that entitlement for me myself, I can take my entitlement with me to any project. Glue, build, and docs are assigned based on the hub or the host. So for example, if Microdesk is running a project, the project is on our site or host, anyone I invite for build, glue, or docs, I would be providing them one of my seats. However, if we're doing BIM 360 design and I invite someone from another company, as long as that other person has their license already, they can bring it with them. I don't have to assign anything to them. Okay, question here. If you purchase BIM 360 design, then you do not need to also purchase docs. So docs would be good only if you need someone to just access the website. If everybody who is going to be accessing the website is also a Revit user, then no, you don't need any extra seats of docs. Typically, companies will purchase both, so that way they're only buying enough seats of design to cover their Revit users. Because docs is less expensive than design. They're just going to purchase the doc seats for just the web users. Okay, another question here. When a consultant shares packages that include Revit models, can you choose which version of the model you link to your own model? Essentially, yes. So when a consultant creates a package that sends their model, you can choose whether or not you use that. So let me hop back into my web browser for a second. And I'm going to go into the design collaboration. So what I'm looking at right here, let me wait for the screen to catch up. There we go. What I'm looking right here is the MEP, Structure and Architecture team. And right now I'm as the architect. I can see that the MEP has created a package here that I haven't used yet. I can tell that because the circle is open. It's not filled in. When I click on this, I have the option to consume this. But let's say that in my process, I'm showing the changes so I can see how it modified from version to version, and I find that there's some things in there that I don't like. I don't want my team to work with this, so I won't consume this. I'll communicate with the MEP team, tell them what my concerns are, and when they issue a new package, I'll review that and then possibly consume that one. So that's the kind of control that I have in terms of which version I'm working with. And again, all that version control I mentioned earlier, let's say something happens and I need to roll back. I always can do that. So if I'm looking at the files that are in my backgrounds, so in this case, if I look in my consumed folder, go to my mechanical, I can see that's on version 5. I can always go back to a previous version and make that current. Another question, are seats monthly? You can purchase the seats monthly. You can also purchase them per year or in a 3-year package. If you were going to do monthly, if you got all 12 months, it would have been cheaper if you purchased by year. Like most things, the more you purchase, the longer you purchase, the cheaper it gets. Question here, do you need design and build and model coordination together? Not necessarily. It just depends on what you want to accomplish. And all of those packages can be used separately. It's not like one works without the, it's not like one needs the other one. Are there additional benefits to using Glue versus just Navisworks? So when I'm talking about Glue right now, I'm talking about Glue as per the package. So what I mean by that is the name of the package is called Glue. The service, the next-gen version, is called Model Coordination. And so the main benefit right now towards that is that I can create a folder, and that folder is going to house different files and views of my models. Every single time I upload a new version of a file, it's going to automatically run clashes against all of the models and file and views in that folder. So essentially, if I upload a new version of the architectural file, it'll show me this matrix and update it. It'll say, okay, your file now has 2 clashes with this model, 5 with this one, 1 with that one, 15 with this one. So it actually runs through that process. It is not a replacement for Navisworks, definitely not yet. I think in the long run it will be, but for right now, this is more of a streamlined, quick tool. Navisworks still has all the power, but there are benefits to using all of them in conjunction. Okay, let's see if I missed any in here. Yep, one question in here did mention a version of Revit 2019. So just to make sure that that part's clear, when we're talking about the next gen for BIM 360 design, that currently works with Revit 2018.3 and 2019. If you're in a Revit version that is older than that, you can still use the service, but you're using it with the classic version. So Collaboration for Revit works from 2018.3 and older. Design Collaboration works 2018.3 and newer in terms of the versions. Okay, so I'm actually going to put one more poll up while I wait for see if there's any more questions. So we always like to try to make sure that we're putting out product that people are looking for, content that people are trying to get, and hopefully it's educational and beneficial. So if this was useful for everybody, definitely appreciate it. If it wasn't, give us some feedback. We'd love to know what you're looking for, and that way we can make sure our content and our videos that we're putting out are more in line with what you need. Okay, yep, got one more question in here. So if you're consuming packages, you link the model from your consumed package. Correct. So what ends up happening is that once I say, so if I look at my design collaboration, I decide to consume that file. What ends up happening is inside of my document management, it updates the version in my consumed folder. That's essentially my backgrounds. One of the complaints a lot of people had with the classic version, Collaboration for Revit, was that everybody could see everybody else's files, the live working model. This allows me to have more control over my working file and also more control over what version of the background I'm receiving from my team. So that way, if I am an architect and I'm moving stuff around all over the place, I don't necessarily want to show that to my structural or my mechanical engineers. I don't want to confuse them with stuff that's really just temporary. I'd rather get everything kind of situated and then send them a version that actually requires their input, and vice versa. So this allows me to have much more control on every side over what version everyone's working with. Yep, you're welcome. All righty. So I want to thank everybody very much for their time. I really appreciate it. If anybody has any additional questions, definitely feel free to reach out to us on our website. We have a lot of other content that is available. So our Facebook page, Twitter, we have our YouTube channel. Now the YouTube channel will actually have all of our webinars, so this webinar will be cleaned up and posted there probably within the week. But if anybody else has any extra questions, something that you forgot to ask or didn't get in, definitely feel free to reach out. We'll be glad to answer it for you. So hope everybody has a great rest of the day and a fabulous holiday coming up. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Have a good one.